for this problem 2, which is to do with, we are looking at a selection program. Okay, we're looking at a selection program. So we're going to create a VB selection program. But to do that, we're going to obviously understand what the problem is in the first place. So the problem we're looking at the moment is we want to create a program where the program asks the user for username and then password, and checks, okay, if the password, length of the password is greater than or equal to 6. If it is greater than or equal to 6, then of course you will check that if the password is equal to username. If it is, of course, displays an error message. If not, then the password is valid. Okay, so 2 conditions. First, number 1, it has to be greater than or equal to 6. Minimum 6 characters long, your password. And then, of course, it has to be, you can't be equal to username, because if the password and the username is the same, it's a problem, so it will give you an error message. If it's not, then it will say the password is valid. Okay, that's the program we want to create. So what is the first thing? If you had a question like this in exam, what's the first thing should come to your mind? What would you do? What are you looking at? What are you thinking of in your mind? What's the first thing you want to do? Okay, you're not going to this coding stage at the moment. We want to move from a thinking process, like a structured English kind of thing. Then we want to think about pseudocode, what the pseudocode looks like. Then we want to think about the flowchart, okay, and then we want to think about Visual Basic Code. I know I'm going for so many different topics in one go, but I want to go through this process so you can see the overall picture of the task, how it's actually it forms, okay, into a pseudocode and a flowchart and a Visual Basic Code. What's the first thing you think of? If I want to create a program, what would it be? What's happening in the beginning? What's the first thing that happens? You ask the user. Yes, you ask the user so you would think, okay, I'm going to create something, ask user for a username. Okay, ask user for username. So you would be something like ask user for username. What do you think the next will happen? What happens next? Yeah, well, of course you'll give an answer. We will store the answer anyway. What happens next? Just when you're in a thinking process like this, you're just thinking of the user screen, what it looks like. Yeah.
You can actually make sure that the dictated what the person writes for using.
Okay, so you will probably ask for the password. Okay, then you ask for the ask user for password. Okay. Just normally thinking it aloud in my head, okay? Ask user for password. What will happen next? Check, okay? Check, okay? If password is greater than or equal to 6. Just thinking what I'm going to do. I'm just thinking about the steps, okay? And then what happens? Another check, okay? Another check. Check if, okay, password is equal to username. Okay? You're thinking in that kind of line. That's what you're thinking. Okay? And then, if both condition is met, just display, okay, message, password valid. Okay, password valid. That is like, I'm just thinking those steps in my head. Okay, I'm just thinking about this sort of steps in my head. Now that I know this is what's going to happen, this is how it's going to be, okay? This is how it's going to be. If I were to create a pseudocode of that, what would the pseudocode look like? Okay? Pseudocode would look like something like this. Okay? the first thing I want to do is basically ask the user to enter username. Okay, so that's the first thing happens. Okay, user input. Okay, you put an arrow and then you have a variable, and I'm going to call the variable as username. That works. Okay, then the next thing I want to do, I'm going to ask the user to enter the user's password. Okay, again, when the user enters his password, it has to be stored somewhere, so I'm going to create this variable, okay, called password. So I have two variables here, username and password. So what's the next thing happens? Okay, the check happens. Okay, what am I checking? Yeah, the length of the password. So I'm going to check. Okay, I'm going to check, and I'm going to ask this question, and I'm going to use if statement. So I'm going to ask if length of the password is greater than or equal to 6. If it is, then I'm going to output a message, password is too short. Okay, else, okay, if password is equal to username, then, okay, I'm going to output password is the same as username. Okay, everyone understand? Yes. Yeah, okay. Yes. So remember, if the first condition is met, if the length of the password is greater than or equal to 6, then I am going to check the next condition. If you fail the first one, then of course password is invalid anyway. If you pass the first one, then the second one, if password is equal to, second check is made, if password is equal to username, then password is the same as the username. And if it's not equal to if the password is not equal to the username, then output password is valid. Okay, very simple program. Does everybody understand that? Yes? Understand? Yeah. Okay. Now that we created pseudocode, how would the flowchart look like? Okay, what would you do for flowchart? How do you start? Yeah. What's the first thing you need to do? First symbol? Yeah, terminator symbol, that's right. But this terminator symbol is a start symbol. Okay, it says capsule size, capsule shape symbol, gives you can use it as a start symbol. What's after that? Okay, next one. Yeah, it's a data flow. You're supposed to show the flow of your data, which way the data is actually flowing. After that, yes, user input. Okay, you got two user input here for two different variables. One of them is for user input for username. So you ask the user to enter his username, and then you have the user input for password. Okay, so you have two inputs: user input for username and password. Then the data flow comes. Okay, data flow. What happens next? What's on the pseudocode? Yeah, yeah. So you're asking questions. Okay, you have if statements, conditional if statements. So you're asking for question. For decision, okay, on flowchart, you have this diamond shape. Okay, that's called the decision point. Okay, for decision point. Okay, so you're asking this question: is the length of the password is less than or equal to 6? Remember, whenever you actually write something inside this decision box, the answer to that question, it must be a question. The answer to the question must be yes or no, true or false, 0 or 1. So whatever goes inside this diamond shape, it must be a question. You're asking a question. Okay, so the answer to that could be yes or no. So suppose the answer is yes. What happens? Okay, it is less than 6. Therefore, it will output an error message, and the error message is output invalid password. It's too short. Too short. Therefore, you can just end the program here. Okay, with another terminator. Stop. End of program. Okay, but if the password is greater than 6, and the answer is no, is the length of password is less than 6, less than or equal to 6, the answer is no, then you ask another question. You have another condition. Okay, are the password and the username the same? Okay, are the password and username the same? If the answer is yes, okay, again, you can output another error message. Output invalid password, same as username. Okay, if the password is same as the username, you can't create a new password. So therefore, it's invalid. You display a error message and you terminate the program, stop the program. Okay. However, if the answer to the question, are the password and the username the same, the answer is no, then you can output a message saying password is valid. Okay, and again you can end the program here. Okay, so remember, to start the program for your flowchart, you need a capsule shape. Okay, you can do start and your end for your capsule shape. Okay, or sausage shape, whatever you want to call it. Then for your user input and output, okay, you have a parallelogram. Okay, then you have the diamond shape for asking the questions. In other words, decision point. You call the decision point where you have your diamond shape and you ask a question. Inside it, you remember, it must be a question, and the answer to the question should be either yes or no. Okay, or it could be true or false, or it could be 0 or 1, but it has to be in that format. Okay, is that understood? Yeah. Okay. Okay, so we're going to create this program in Visual Basic. Okay, so the first thing we need to do, we need to decide on how many variables do we need. Okay, so what did we decide? What are the two variables that we declared? We need username and password. So let's create two variables. Username. What would be the data type of username? String, yeah. And the other variable? Password. And the data type would be? Okay. Now, we've got two variables here. Okay. And the idea is to ask the user to enter his username, then ask the user to enter his or her password, and then check. First thing, what do we check? If the amount of character the user have entered for the password, if it's greater than 6 or not. How do we do that, programmers? If statement, you're right, but think carefully. Okay, how do you check the amount of characters? Yes, Naeem. Exactly. Yeah, you need to use the len function to ascertain how many characters is there in the password, in the variable password in the first place. So what we need to do, we would need another variable. That's the better way of doing it. So we say dim, and I'm going to call it count as integer. Yes, because we want a count, we want a number. So integer. Okay. So now we have three variables. So the first thing we need to do is ask the user to enter username. So console.write enter username. Okay, so this is going to be displayed on the user screen. Okay, enter username. How do I store the user's input into a variable?
Username equals.
Okay, so we're going to store it into the variable called username. Username equals console.readline. Okay, so now we have user's username. We need user's password. So again, we need to ask. So when we want to ask something, we need to display it to the user screen. This is what we want. Okay, so console.write enter password. Okay, so where would we store this? Onto password. Very simple. Onto the variable password. So password is equal to console.readline. Okay, so now we have username stored in the variable username. Now we have user's password stored in the user's password. Okay, I need to basically ascertain how many characters are there in the user's password. Okay, so to do that, we're going to use the len function, and obviously the answer to the how many characters are in the variable password would be, the value would be stored into the variable. We want to store it into count. So we need to put count equals the len function, and what is the variable we are inspecting? Password. So now the program will go and count how many characters in the variable password and then store it into count. Now I can check. So I can use if statement. If count is less than or equal to 6, then we want to put up a message. Console dot write line password is too short. Okay, else if password is equal to username, then what do you want to do? If password is equal to username, error message, yeah. Console.write line password is the same as username. And if it's not the same, else, what do you want to say? Console.write line password is valid. Okay. Right, I'm going to run the program now. Okay, I'm going to run the program now. If I run the program, okay, let's run the program first. So now I'm going to type in, say, my username, Mizan. Okay, and for password, I'm going to type something like 1, 2, 3. So 3 characters. Okay, 1, 2, 3. I need to put a console.read line there, so you keep the user screen. Okay, so running again. Okay, so if I type in Mizan and the password 1, 2, 3, okay, it should give me an error message. Password is too short. Okay, you can see password is too short. Okay, if I run it again, and what I want to do is, if I do Mizanur, that's more than 6 characters, username, and I do the same as the password is the same, Mizanur, I'm expecting an error message. The password is same as username. Again, another error message. Now, if I want to do it properly, okay, so if I run the program again, and then I type in Mizan, and if I do password like Mizan 1, 2, 3, 4, which is obviously longer and it's not the same as the username, password valid. Okay, so the program works. Okay, does everyone understand this? Yes. Question.
How come there's 2 end ifs?
Okay, because good question. Because if you start a if statement, you must end it. Okay, so this if statement is the end if for this if statement. This one starts here, ends here. So it's nesting going on here. So there's another if statement started. You must end that if statement, terminate it somewhere. So this one ending is here. So this one with this one, and this if statement with this if statement. So there's nesting going on. It's if statement within an if statement.
How many times can you do that?
Say again?
How many times can you do that?
Many. I don't know exactly the exact number, how many times, what's the limit, but you can do many. You can have if statement within an if statement within an if statement within, I'm sure. Okay? Right. Any other question?
No.
Yes?
What do you mean by count equals len password?
Good. So what's happening here, right? Anyone want to explain? Yeah. What's your, sorry? Zakaria, yeah.
Does len count the amount, count the, like each letter?
Characters, yes. So what does this len function do? It's a built-in function. It goes, you want to explain, Naim?
It goes, it puts the number of letters inside the password which count.
Yes, okay. So the len function built-in is a len function, is a built-in function. Whatever the user types in, look at this line, enter password. So user, this message is displayed, right?
The length of the password.
Yes. Length of the, how many characters? So whatever the user types in here, enter password, whatever the user types, if the user types in Mizan, for example, okay, M-I-Z-A-N, it goes inside this password, Mizan. Then what it does, len does, it goes counts, M-I-Z-A-N. That's 5 characters. And what it does, it puts 5 in there, inside the variable called count. Okay? Is it understood?
Yes.
Yeah. So now because we have 5 already in there, it can compare now. It means is 5 less than or equal to 6? It is less. Okay? So therefore you're going to display this message. But imagine if I typed in, for example, Mizan 123. Okay? So enter password. I type in password and then as a user I type in Mizan 123. So the len function goes there, and at the moment Mizan 123 is inside this variable called password, so it goes and counts. Okay, M-I-Z-A-N 1 2 3. Okay, that's 8 characters. So it puts 8, the value of 8 inside this variable called count. And then now it says if count is less than or equal to 6, is 8 less than or equal to 6? No, it's not. So you will skip the whole section here, you go to else, you go to the here, and then you start comparing here. Then the next comparison happens if password is equal to username. No, it's not, because I typed in username Mizan and the password Mizan 1234. No, so therefore else password is valid. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, good.